What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am going to bring you a text tutorial. Now what we mean by that is I'm going to talk about if effects, when effects, mandatory effects, and then the four main conjunctions of then effects, also effects, and if you do, and effects. So I'm going to take you through some card examples. I'll explain what each of those mean, how you can work them, and how you can improve your overall Yu-Gi-Oh game. I know you wanted to see some of the other tutorials as well, so if you get this video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, I will then bring you more tutorial videos going over deck building, battle phases, damage step, you name it. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So let's start with the most common text, and that is of course going to be if effects. Now, if effects happen on a new chain, which means you resolve the first chain in order to get its trigger effect. So the trigger effect of Rainbow is if it is discarded via to the graveyard via a card effect, it will trigger some sort of effect. Now, because it's an if effect, it means I would have had to activate a card such as Darkworld Dealings first, discard, draw a card, discard my Rainbow, resolve that chain, and then on a new chain I can begin to build my optional effects. Mandatory first if I have any, and then optional effects can then go into any order that you wish. So another if effect that we're going to talk about, this one is mandatory, it is not optional. So what does mandatory mean? Well, very simply, if you look at the text on Rainbow, it says if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can. That is the big sticking point, is it says you can. If the card does not say you can, and it actually forces you to do an effect in the form of the Grepher, so if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, target one card your opponent controls, destroy that target. There is no option on that, you have to always activate it. Whether they have a card to destroy it or not is a mandatory effect. So when you are building your chain links, every time you discard Grepher via a card effect, you always need to make Grepher chain link 1, or it could be chain link 2 if you have another mandatory effect. Mandatory effects are always the first to be built on the chain link, which means they'll always be the last to resolve. So for example, if I activated card destruction and discarded both of these on resolution, because these are both if effects, I would have to go chain link 1 Grepher and then chain link 2 Rainbow. I couldn't do it the other way around because Grepher is a mandatory effect. It has to happen, whereas Rainbow is optional. I could choose not to activate it if I want to, or if I don't have any other targets left in the deck. So that's the difference between mandatory and optional effects that are if based. The next one we're going to talk about is when effects. So we'll start off with the more common one, which is going to be Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. So when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these effects, quick effect, discard this card, negate that effect. Now, this is what gets really, really important with when effects. So unlike if effects that happen on a new chain, so Darkworld Dealings, resolve that chain, trigger Rainbow, with when effects, they have to respond directly to the requirement of what is happening. And what I mean by that is, with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, when a card or effect is activated, it includes the effect to add. So, in the previous example that I've been using, if I activate Darkworld Dealings, that is my chain link 1. It is at that point that I have met the trigger conditions for Ash Blossom, as I am attempting to add a card from deck to the hand, that Ash Blossom can then be used. So that's when you can then go, okay, cool, activate Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom will then negate the Darkworld Dealings to draw a card. On an example of where you can chain block Ash Blossom, which is a lot of what people try to do, is you can take, for example, Rainbow, who when it is discarded, or if it is discarded, lets you add a card from the deck to the hand, which meets the requirement of Ash Blossom. However, in the previous chain, I also banished Genta from the graveyard, meaning I have Genta's effect that can now be triggered to summon itself back. Because these are both if effects and neither of them are mandatory, and they are in trigger sequence, so I get to build the chains as I am the turn player, I get to go chain link 1 Rainbow, chain link 2 Genta. Now that I have built my chains, the priority passes back to my opponent to interact with me, so that they can then attempt to use Ash Blossom, but there is nothing for Ash Blossom to happen because the last thing that happened was the attempt to summon off of Genta, not the search off of Rainbow. Now, if I built my chains the other way around and went chain link 1 Genta, chain link 2 Rainbow, then the perfect opportunity is there for my opponent to activate Ash Blossom on Rainbow, as Rainbow is chain link 2. So now we're going to move on to conjunctions. So the first conjunction we're going to talk about is the then effect. So we're going to use Shadow Beast as this example. flip, you can draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So, what is important about the then conjunction? B happens after A. Even though they're part of one card effect, these happen in sequence, not simultaneously. Why is that important? Well, quite simply, A is required for B, but not vice versa. If A does not happen, then you stop. If B cannot happen, you still do A. So, in this example here, you do not need to be able to discard a card in order to activate Beast. So it means you don't have to have a card in your hand to activate this effect. So for example, if I had no cards in my hand, I can still flip Beast even though I can't discard a card because I'll ultimately end up having 2 cards to discard. So B happens after A. It's not like, okay, cool, I draw 2 cards as cost. There is now an open window. My opponent can react, can do whatever it wants to, and then I discard a card. It's all in one effect, but you need to be able to do one and the other. You need to be able to do A in order to discard. So if you can't do A, you can't discard, but you don't need to be able to discard to draw. So the way this kind of works on this one is, again, you will draw a card. So you would flip Should Old Beast, draw 2 cards. If my opponent was to, I don't know, have some sort of chain that says exactly after your opponent has drawn a card, discard their entire hand, they could do that. I would lose my entire hand, and then I could not be able to resolve the discard of Beast. Now, obviously, their card effect cannot interact with Beast. There is no gap between draw 2 cards and discard a card. But let's say they played a card on Chain Link 2. So I flipped Should Old Beast, attempt to use this effect, and they did Chain Link 2, activate a card that says I cannot discard cards. I would still be able to draw cards, and I just wouldn't discard. It's pretty much the same if your opponent activates Artifact Lancer. So if you go Allure of Darkness, which lets you draw 2 and then banish a card, and they chain Artifact Lancer, I would still draw the 2 cards, I just wouldn't banish. I have to reveal my hand to show that I had a card to be banished, but because Lancia stops me from banishing in that chain, you don't actually banish a card, which is a nice little loophole as well. We're now going to look at the also, sorry, my throat is going proper croaky. So, do A, also do B. So, on the effect of number 99, Utopia, Dragonor, the turn you activate this effect, other monsters you control cannot attack directly. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except XYZ. So, how do also effects work? Neither is required for the other. You just do as much as possible. So, for example, on this one, you attempt to special summon from the extra deck. Obviously, you can't special summon from the extra deck except XYZs after that point. But if your opponent was to completely take away your extra deck in response to this, you'll still be able to continue to play, and that lock doesn't really apply. So it's one of them ones that you don't need to rely on either. Like, for example, if the also effect was also draw a card, but you had no cards in the graveyard, no cards in your deck at that point, then what you'd still be able to do is you'd still be able to summon an XYZ, and then if you were to, in some sort of chain, put a card back into the deck, you could then still draw a card. So unlike then effects, where it goes do A, then do B, also considered to happen in the exact same time. So your XYZ summon and you XYZ summon yourself at the same time. You don't draw and then go, discard. So that's the difference between an also and then a then effect. So it's one then the other, whereas also is happened simultaneously. Another example here is Masked Ninja Bisu. So once per turn, if you control a face-up ninja monster other than Masked Ninja itself, you can activate this effect. Return a number of your opponent's spells and traps to the hand equal to the number of ninja monsters you control. Also, every face-up Go-Go the Guardian Ninja you control can attack your opponent directly. So they happen simultaneously. It's not as if your opponent can go, right, okay, well, I'll let you target the cards I control at the back row to return them to the hand, but then I want to negate the effect of you being able to attack directly. It happens all at the same time. The next one we're going to look at is and if you do. So on the example, we're going to go for Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. So Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and if you do effect is as follows. You destroy one monster in your hand or field, and if you do, change all face-up monsters your opponent controls to face-down defense position. So, considered simultaneously, both happen at the same time. A is required for B, but not vice versa. If A does not happen, then you stop. If B cannot happen, you still do A. So, what this means is, in this example here, You need to be able to destroy a monster in order to attempt to flip all of your opponent's monsters face down. If you cannot destroy a monster, you cannot even attempt to activate the effect. However, should you activate the effect and your opponent remove all of their monsters on their board so they have no more monsters that can be flipped face down, you can still destroy a monster in your hand, or you still have to destroy a monster in the hand or on the field. It's not like your opponent can go, okay, cool, now you can't destroy anything. If I've only got Ultimate Conductor left on the board because they've activated Mind Crush, for example, and taken the one card out of my hand, I still have to destroy my Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. All of that effect is still happening. Now, if they activated a card effect that means I cannot destroy it, like for example, if they went Mind Crush and then chained a card that meant that Ultimate Conductor could not be destroyed by its own effects, and I couldn't destroy a card, then I wouldn't be able to flip anything face down. So that's the difference. Like, as long as I can still destroy a card, I still have to, even if I can Book a Moon all my opponent's monsters or not. And then the final one, and this is a little bit more specific, this is just simply and. So do A and B. So unlike the then effects, which is do A and then do B, when you're doing A and B, they happen simultaneously. Both happen at the same time and both are required. If you cannot do both, you cannot do either of them. So the example of number 53, Heart Earth, is as followed. When this card on the field is destroyed by card effect, while it has no XYZ material, you can special summon one number 92 Heart Earth Dragon from your extra deck and attach this card from your graveyard to it as material. So for example, if I attempt to trigger that effect, or if this gets banished, I cannot use its effect because I can't attach this to a Heart Earth Draco. If I activate this effect and my opponent removes the Heart Earth Dragon from the extra deck, I then can't special summon it, which means I can't attach this as material. So special summoning 92 and attaching number 53 to it as material happen at the same time. If you do both, if number 53 was removed from the graveyard with a chained effect, you cannot summon number 92. So that's what I'm trying to say here, is if your opponent would then go like, okay, cool, DD Crow, I can't summon 92 and go, right, okay, well, I can't attach a material, it still happens. It's not a then effect, it's not summon Heart Earth and then attach, it happens at the same time. So I need to be able to summon and attach, and if I can't do that, I can't resolve the effect. So I know conjunctions are very, very kind of confusion as well, and some cards do have multiple conjunctions and everything else. Just remember, different conjunctions serve different purposes. Depending on whether you're checking to see what the last thing that happened was, to check whether a new effect can be activated, or if you're trying to see how much of the effect you should do. If you're checking activation eligibility, you need to focus on timing and then look for the then and also and if you do. If you're checking to see how much of the effect you do, look for also and then / and if you do versus just and. And is the one where everything has to happen. If you do is ones that allow you to adapt and change it as accordingly. Now I know this video is a lot of information to take in. I've tried to keep it as short, sweet and simple as I possibly can. I will also leave a link in the description below to a Yu-Gi-Oh blog that have all of the conjunctions written down with some of the same examples so that you can read over them yourself while also just being spoken to via myself with some visual aids. If you have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. But the devil is in the detail. Read the cards. The trigger cards or the trigger words you want to be looking for are when effects, if effects, also, if you do, and then. So many different little conjunctions, so many little different notes to keep an eye on, but it does make a massive difference in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway, I hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you want to see another tutorial video, whether that be deck building, whether that be chain links, whether that be battle phase, damage step, the entire turn phases, then let me know in the comments down below. Get the video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours and I'll be more than happy to bring that for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.